Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and it is Open Forum today. 2 hours of Open Forum. Second hour, Jim Blackburn will be here with us this hour. Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers and the author of many, many things. As a matter of fact, just before we went on the air, I asked him how many books, and you not only don't know, you didn't seem to really care that much about how many books it is.
I just write. It's one of the things I do, so...
I mean, it's like saying to somebody, how many kids you have? I don't know. We just got kids all over the place. I don't know.
It's understandable, like when somebody is, and I remember this phase, before I was a published author, you really look forward to being published, and before your first book comes out, you really look forward to your first book coming out.
Yeah.
And that's natural and healthy and understandable. But if after you've written a bunch of books and a bunch of articles, if you're meticulously focused on exactly how many it's been, and that's still
creepy.
a big, yeah, exactly. There's something a little broken there.
Do you remember the first time you made it into print?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Was it apologetics or something?
No,
some other part of your life?
It was something else.
Yeah.
At least I remember roughly when it occurred. It was in high school. And I went to the Arkansas Governor's School for Gifted and Talented Students, and I went in art, and which is something not a lot of people, I guess, know about me. But I practiced to do, cartoon style art for years and years, and so I published in the Governor's School publication. There was student-made publication. I published some comic strips that I'd done, and I look at them now, or if I even have them now, I when I have subsequently looked back on them, I
like
cringe.
If anybody's got a copy of that, there's $5 in it for you. I'd like a copy of that. 888-318-7884 is our number. You're welcome to call with any question you have about the Catholic faith. Whether you are Catholic or not, anyone is welcome to call, 888-318-7884. And as I've said before, when Jimmy's here, we usually broaden it out a little bit. If you got a more general religious question or a question having to do with philosophy or morals, those are welcome as well. Or if you got any cartooning questions, those will be welcome today as well. 888-318-7884. Or if you prefer the spelled version, 888-31-TRUTH. Okay, so Jimmy, part of why I asked you how many books have you had published is that you just finished one.
Yeah, well, I'm in the process of finishing one. My current book is on church teachings and how to evaluate them and figure out how much authority they have, and what's authoritative, what's not, what's infallible, what's not.
Yeah.
And over the weekend on Saturday, I had a marathon writing session where I wrote the last chapter. It ended up being 10,500 words long. I wrote the
That's
whole
a quarter of a book.
whole thing in one day, and now I'm in the process of editing the chapters to get them ready to turn in.
I see. So you can't just turn in the first draft? You're not one of those?
What I have now is what I think of as the 0th draft.
It's not even the first.
The first draft is what I turn in. But after you bang the stuff out initially, you need to improve it and get it ready for publication.
10,000 words is a lot of words. If for Hemingway we're going to do that, he'd have to drink a lot of grappa. You didn't drink grappa, did you?
I'm not even sure what grappa is, but I'm sure I didn't drink it. I did drink a lot of Diet Mountain Zevia.
Almost the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's caffeine, but has no calories.
I'm pretty sure grappa is like very low quality Italian wine, but I'm not sure. Somebody can call and tell us if you want. 888-318-7884, the number, 888-31-TRUTH. So different levels of authority. You would be able to say maybe what the highest level of authority is, but you wouldn't be able to say what the lowest is. The lowest is like, a guy told me in the back of the church.
No, that's in terms of church teaching. I mean, there are things that are just not church teaching at all.
Okay.
And there's actually a surprising number of statements that you find in church documents that are not doctrinal at all. And I have a whole chapter devoted to that. A few years ago, I did something of a study on the question of, well, okay, so just let's go through some church documents and classify the sentences based on whether they're expressing doctrine or something else. And the number of something else sentences is surprisingly large.
Wow, I think you could turn that chapter into its own book sometime. There's like things the church never said.
Well,
like that.
or things that the church said but aren't teachings.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so what would be? I believe I've asked you this on the air before, but so is the highest, most authoritative statement of the church dogma? Is that what you would?
There are different ways you can understand it, but if you're speaking just in terms of authority, of is this true, then once something is infallible, that's it. You can't get more than infallible.
I see.
However, within things that are infallible, they have different relations to divine revelation. And if the church has infallibly defined that something is divinely revealed, then it's a dogma. Because it's part of divine revelation and the church has defined it as such. But there are other infallible teachings the church has and other infallible truths that aren't even teachings exactly, that are also infallible and thus also guaranteed to be true.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So I like the way you start that, though. You can't get more authoritative than infallible. Infallible means it's definitely true. Yeah. We got a ton of calls.
Okay. Let's do some.
All right. Let's go to Chase in Harrisonburg, Virginia, watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching on YouTube, Chase. You are first up with Jimmy Akin today for Open Forum. Your question, please.
Hi, Cy. Well, I called a while back. I've been listening for months, getting close to a year, I suppose, in a couple months. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you, and happy upcoming anniversary.
Yeah, happy 1 year anniversary almost.
Yeah. So my question, I had kind of trouble wording it, but so I have friends who might be interested in looking at early Christian writings, or the writings of the early Christians, and I would be, and in the context of kind of seeing that early Christian writers were Catholic as opposed to non-denominational Christian, or if I'm just trying to show someone who doesn't believe that the early church has always been the Catholic Church. I guess I was wondering, I know about New Advent. I've looked on their sites and I looked on the site and I've seen some of the writings. And
Chase, are you looking for a recommendation of a book that can illustrate how the early church fathers were Catholic rather than some other kind of Christian? Is that what you're looking for?
I'm actually trying to see if I were to send one of these friends online to find these writings, I wasn't convinced if they would take these writings as authentic as opposed to, like, how do I know this is authentic? Because it's not like an old ancient manuscript I'm holding in my hands, but how can I be sure this is authentically what you claim it is?
Okay, well, I would say, number one, I wouldn't worry too much about that because these documents are widely accepted to be authentic by Christians of all persuasions and even by non-Christians. I mean, we have earlier manuscripts of them. Now, an individual person might have to go to a research library or a museum to find those manuscripts, but they do exist, and they're not controversial. I would suggest if one of your friends comes back to you with the claim, this isn't authentic, well, you mentioned the Church Fathers documents that are on New Advent. Where those are taken from is actually a 38-volume set of translations of the Church Fathers' writings that was created by Protestant scholars. And back in the 1980s and 90s, they were digitized, and then eventually Kevin Knight at New Advent put them online because the Protestant publishing house that issued the electronic edition, made them freely available without a copyright, and so lots of people have them, and Catholics have even used them, and that thus is a set that was attested to as genuine by Protestant scholars.
Okay. So is that specific to just the writings of the Church Fathers on Advent or New Advent, or would that be all of the writings that you could find, like the early Christian writings on New Advent?
Well, the early Christian writings that are there are by the Church Fathers, properly speaking, and by other early Christian writers, but the same thing is true of both of them. They're all taken from that 38-volume set.
Okay, that's awesome.
Okay.
Well, hey, Chase, thanks for starting us off with that question. We have to go to a break right now. It's open forum. Jimmy Akin is our guest this hour. If you have any question about the Catholic Church or religion more generally, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Be right back after this.
This is Bishop Robert Baer, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Summer is upon us, and though the temperatures are going up, the prices are coming down during Catholic Answers' first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, dozens of great books are available for $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. This is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for you, your friends, and your family. The spectacular online event offers savings of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Michuta, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now to shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
Howdy folks, this is Jimmy Akin, and I want to tell you about a special limited time offer we've got going right now on subscriptions to our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. You can sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll also give you a digital subscription to the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. Better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll drop the price by $20. That's a savings of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now because this is a limited time offer. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com today.
St. Paul's street evangelization isn't like other evangelism you might have seen on the streets. We don't yell, and we don't force anyone to pay attention to us. Instead, St. Paul's street evangelization is committed to presenting a positive, passionately Catholic presence to a world hungry for truth. For more information, or to start a chapter of your own, go to www.streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com. It's time to do our part.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, open forum, 2 hours today. Lots and lots of folks get on the line for open forum. So if you've got a question, go ahead and start dialing 888-318-7884. We'll do our very best to get to all the questions if we can. And questions from anyone, whether Catholic or not Catholic, are welcome about any aspect of our Catholic life or faith. We go now to Tagan on Vancouver Island in Canada. Tagan, your question for Jimmy Akin.
Hi, Cy and Jimmy. Catholic Answers has been a huge help in my conversion.
Awesome.
I was
Thank
just
you.
confirmed 2 weeks ago.
Whoa, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my question for Jimmy is, what does it mean when some people refer to our Blessed Mother as co-redemptress?
When people refer to Mary as co-redemptrix, it means that she, in a unique way, cooperated with the work of her Son, the Redeemer. Now, this expression can be a little confusing to English speakers because in English, co frequently indicates equality. So if you have two people who are co-managers or co-presidents, then they're equal. That's not how the term co is being used in this instance, because Mary is obviously a creature. She does not redeem us the way Jesus does. She didn't die on the cross for us, and so this has a very different meaning. It's based on the Latin word cum, and cum, when it's brought into English, can become the prefix co. But in Latin, cum means with, not equal to. And so a co-redeemer is someone who cooperates with the Redeemer in one way or another. And we all do that as Christians. We're all called to cooperate with Jesus by proclaiming his gospel to others and leading people to Jesus and helping them embrace the Christian faith and accept the forgiveness of their sins. And so all of us, from the apostles down to the lowliest Christian, are called to cooperate in the work of redemption, and thus we're all co-redeemers in that sense. Mary, because she was the person through whom Jesus entered this world, and because she raised him and did various things to help him in life, to prepare for his ministry as an adult, because she was there at the foot of the cross and stood by him even then, she cooperated with the Redeemer in a unique way. And that's why she's referred to as co-redemptrix.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, Tegan, thanks so much. I appreciate your call, and congratulations again on your full reception into the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Jimmy Maury on Facebook wrote the following. What is the best way to address someone who believes in chakras?
Okay. So chakras are proposed energy centers in our bodies that are talked about in some Eastern belief systems, including the New Age movement. And if the person's a Christian, I would point out that this concept has a couple of problems. One of them is it originates in a non-Christian faith. It is not part of the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that should, for anyone who takes their Christian faith seriously, should be a big warning sign. The other thing about it, though, is there's just no evidence for these things. There's no physical way to detect these chakras, and they're supposed to occur at certain places in the body. But if you do like a CAT scan or an MRI or any other form of scientific detection that you want to do, these are not going to show up. So we don't have scientific evidence that they exist. Now, you could say, well, do we have religious evidence that they exist? Well, if you're a Hindu or something, maybe what you would consider evidence religiously would point to them, but not if you're a Christian. They're not part of the revelation that God gave us, and so if you're a Christian, not only do you not have scientific evidence for them, you also don't have religious evidence for them.
Okay, Maury, I hope that helps. Nick, I'm just picking up on this fact. Was that Maury, your dad, Maury? That's Nick.
I guess
you got that already?
Yeah.
Oh, he's sneaky. Don't let him in again, Nick. Do not let him in. Now look at who our next caller is. A guy named Nick in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, listening on the Catholic Answers app. Nick, thanks for downloading the app. Thanks for your call. Your question for Jimmy Akin.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I just had a question because I had seen the past and actually just been concerned a lot more recently. I read something that said, accusing yourself of sins that you have not committed is a mortal sin of lying and confession, and St. Vincent Ferrer is alleged to have said that. And my concern is sometimes quite often, I'm uncertain about things, and I will say them anyways, or I'll tell the priest that, and he even said, well, yeah, you should be moving away from that, which is kind of obvious, but
okay.
I just want to know, is that true, or is my understanding of that statement skewed at all?
Well, I would say that it can be a mortal sin to confess something that you know you haven't done. If you go into the confessional and just to mess with the priest, confess to murder, Well, okay, you're deceiving the priest, and it's about a grave matter, and that priest is never going to look at you the same way again. And there's no good reason for what you're doing, and you're doing it in a sacred context, and therefore you're profaning the sacred. So so I would say there are situations where if you knowingly confess to something that you didn't do, it can be a mortal sin. I don't know that I would say that applies in all cases. However, in particular, I would say it's not going to apply in cases where you don't know, because if you don't know if you've confessed something or if you committed it for sure, then then you're not lying to say, I think I did this, or I may have done this, or something like that. It's best if you can include those qualifiers like I think, or I'm not sure, but I may have. It's good to get those qualifiers in. But fundamentally, if you're not sure whether you did something, then you are not deliberately lying when you confess it. In order for something to be a mortal sin, as we know, 3 conditions have to be met. There has to be grave matter, you have to have full knowledge of its moral character, and you have to do it deliberately anyway. And if you don't know for sure whether you did something, then you don't have full knowledge of the fact that this thing is false. Even if it turns out that it is false, you don't have full knowledge of that. And so the conditions required for mortal sin are not going to apply. Then we get into some practical questions like, well, let's suppose I'm 99% sure I did do this. Do I need to add that qualifier? Father, I'm 99, but only 99% sure I did this. Well, if you're that sure, you don't need to bother with including such a fine distinction to cover such a tiny probability or possibility that you didn't do it. On the other hand, if you think there's only a 1% chance that you did, well, then you probably don't want to just come off and say, I did this. You probably want to say, I think I might, but, get some kind of qualifier in there that indicates you're not certain. Then there's the question of, to what degree should you be confessing things you're not sure about? Well, in the case of people who have a lax conscience, the generally sound spiritual advice is for them to confess if they're not sure, because they've been living away from God, their conscience isn't formed well, and for them, erring on the side of safety by going ahead and confessing something, even though they're not 100% sure, that's the better thing to do. But if you're a scrupulous person and you're inclined to see sins all over the place in your life that need to be confessed, then the standard spiritual advice reverses, and it becomes, no, you should only confess if you're certain, because God wants confession to be an experience through which you grow closer to Him. He doesn't want to allow conditions like scrupulosity to get you trapped in loops of, oh, did I confess this, or maybe I forgot to confess it, maybe I need to confess it again, and even though I don't think it was a mortal sin, I probably better confess it anyway. All of that needs to be cut through in the case of a scrupulous person, and the standard advice is err on the side of only confessing something if you're absolutely certain.
Nick, I appreciate that question. Thanks so much for that call. We're going to move on, and I hope that was helpful. James in Port Charlotte, Florida, listening also on the Catholic Answers app. James, thanks so much for downloading the app. Your question for Jimmy.
Hi. When I read Matthew 5:24 and 25, I think I read somewhere, heard a long time ago, that is the verses that the church has integrated into the liturgy when we do the sign of peace. Is that correct? Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Matthew 5:24. Leave your gift there at the altar. Go first and be reconciled with your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Settle with your opponent quickly while on the way to court with them.
Yeah, it's certainly reasonable to suppose that these verses played a role in the development of the sign of peace. Obviously, they're not quoted in the liturgy at the moment of the sign of peace, and I would have to do some research on the history of the Mass to see if it's even possible to document that they had an influence, but it's certainly reasonable to suppose that, and that's something that I've, speculated about in the past.
Okay, James?
Fantastic.
All right, thank you. And again, thanks very much for downloading the Catholic Answers app onto the phone. Our listeners, you can download the app. You just go to the App Store for whatever kind of phone you're using, whether it's an Apple or what's the other one? Android. And there's probably something else, maybe like a Microsoft phone or.
Well, there was Windows Phone, but that's, I think, gone now.
It's gone away?
Yeah.
All right.
Fire Phone is definitely gone.
Fire Phone, that was Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're down to Android and Apple, but get the app nonetheless, Catholic Answers app, and you got us on the go anytime you want. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with our senior apologist, Jimmy Akin, right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Got questions? Visit us today at Catholic.com.
When you deal with God, get out of the way.
The incomparable Mother Angelica. She broke the mold of Catholic teaching with her one-of-a-kind perspective. From her spunky spiritual growth talks to her eye-opening scripture study. A nun like none other.
I intended to scare the hell out of you.
She was the one, the only, the non-forgettable Mother Angelica. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio and television.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Are you looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker to come and speak at your conference or parish event? If so, you're in luck. We've got a host of Catholic Answers speakers, including myself, just waiting to get on a plane and come see you. Just go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com to get all the information you need to make your event the talk of the town. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
If only evangelization was easy. But the truth of the matter is that most of the time, it's not. Talking about the Catholic faith is enough of a challenge even before dealing with the roadblocks that keep people from listening with an open mind. Apologist Carlo Broussard recognized that as he wrote Prepare the Way, a guide to step-by-step strategies that readers can use to break down those barriers to the very existence of God and religious truth, barriers to basic Christian beliefs, and barriers to the distinctive teachings and claims of the Catholic Church. Don't let obstacles get in your way. Learn how to overcome them. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Thanks, Nick. That's pretty good Tuesday music. I like it. Cy Kellett, your host, Open Forum. Our topic today, our guest, Jimmy Akin, the author of A Daily Defense, 365 Days Plus One to Becoming a Better Apologist, which I can almost guarantee, depending on your personality, that's my own, that you will be happy if you get that book. It's just a great little journey through all of the major apologetics questions, and it's in a format that you can read a little, read a lot, take it at your own pace. You'll like it. A Daily Defense, 365 Days Plus One to Becoming a Better Apologist, at fine Catholic bookstores everywhere, but mostly at shop.catholic.com. Ready for more calls, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Let's go to Patrick Michael in Houston. Patrick Michael, you have the same name as one of my brothers. Your question for Jimmy, please. Oh, Patrick Michael, are you there? Okay, we're going to come back to you. Don't panic. I probably put the phone down. Ezra in North Carolina, listening on Amazon Alexa. How cool is that? I don't remember hearing that before.
Yeah, that's cool. I use Alexas all the time.
Yeah. Ezra?
Yeah, I'm here.
Your question for Jimmy.
So my question is, where do Catholics get the belief of Mary's perpetual virginity from, and why is it important that Catholics are required to believe it?
Okay. The The belief comes from the fact that it's true, but I assume what you're inquiring about is how do we know that that's true? And the answer is the evidence for it comes in a number of forms. One of the forms is Scripture itself. There are indications in Scripture that Mary did not have other children besides Jesus, and that she and Joseph did not have a normal conjugal relationship as husband and wife. One of the ways that Scripture suggests that is in the Gospel of Luke. It occurs in chapter 1 when the angel Gabriel appears to Mary and tells her that she's going to become pregnant. And at this time in her life, she is betrothed to Joseph, and they're in the period before she's begun living under the same roof with Joseph. And that meant in their day and age that they were legally married at this time, but they hadn't yet gotten to the point of what was known as the fetching of the bride ceremony. So they're already legally married, but they're not yet cohabiting. And if Mary were planning on an ordinary marriage, and an angel showed up and said to her, as she's already legally married and is just waiting for the fetching of the bride ceremony, "Behold, you're going to conceive and have a son," well, she would think, okay, after the fetching of the bride ceremony, Joseph and I will have normal marital relations, and I'll become pregnant, and I'll have a son, and that's what the angel is telling me. But instead, Mary says, "How can this be?" And in Greek, what she says literally next is, "For I know not man." And she uses the present tense, indicating, in this case, a state of ongoing action. It's not just that she hasn't slept with a man, it's that she's not planning on it. This is not consistent with her plans. And so she obviously knows the facts of life, otherwise she wouldn't have asked the question. But the fact she asked the question, given that she's already legally married to Joseph, indicates something's different here. This is not an ordinary marriage she's thinking about. And we have other indications of that as well. For one thing, Joseph is not around at the time of Jesus' adult ministry. The last reference we have to him is in Luke chapter 2, where he appears when Jesus is 12. But he's not around at all in Jesus' adult ministry, and scholars, both Protestant and Catholic, have concluded he was probably deceased at that point, that he probably was not alive during Jesus' adult ministry. But if that's the case, then he might be, and this is a possibility, I'm not saying this is a certainty, he might have been quite a bit older than Mary, and that's something that's going to come back to us. Then, if we go to the foot of the cross in John 19, Jesus looks down from the foot of the cross, he sees his mother Mary there, and he also sees the beloved disciple. And he says to the beloved disciple, "Behold your mother." And he says to Mary, "Behold your son." And we're told that from that moment on, the beloved disciple took Mary as one of his own. So this is Jesus on the literal textual level arranging for Mary to be cared for after he has been crucified. Now, if Mary had other children, this would make no sense. It would be an insult of outrageous proportions especially in their culture, to entrust the care of your mother to a non-family member. And if Joseph were still alive, and if the so-called brethren of Jesus were Mary's own children, then this sequence of events would not have played out the way it would have. Mary would have just been entrusted to one of the other family members. And that suggests that Joseph had passed on and that the brethren of the Lord were not actually children of Mary. Now, what were they? Well, here's where some evidence comes in from the writings of the church fathers, which is another source of information. According to some church fathers, they were what we would today call cousins. They didn't have a word for cousin in Aramaic, and so other terms like brother got used for cousin. Same thing was true in Hebrew, and we even see that in the book of Genesis, where Abraham and Lot, who in our terms would be described as cousins, are actually or, well, actually, I guess Lot is Abraham's nephew. They're nevertheless described as brothers in Hebrew. According to the earliest information we have outside of the New Testament, the brothers of Jesus were children of Joseph by a prior marriage. There's a document known as it's sometimes called the Proto-Evangelium of James. It's also called the Infancy Gospel of James, and it dates from the mid-2nd century, so about 100 years after Mary's life. It's not part of the New Testament, it's not canonical, but it can preserve historical traditions about Jesus' family. And the tradition that it preserves is that Joseph was, in fact, an elderly widower. He already had children and was not looking to have another family, and that's why he was an appropriate man to become the guardian of a consecrated virgin like Mary, who was not planning on having a family. And so that's the information we have from the 2nd century that points in this direction. So in addition to the biblical hints, we also have direct statements from the 2nd century onward about this situation. And ultimately, the church leaders, using their authority to teach, given by Christ, infallibly taught this. And so it's something that Catholics and other Christians who respect the data that we have here, including the teaching of the church, accept as authoritative. Now, you then asked, well, why is it important to accept this? Well, from one perspective, you can say it's simply important because it's true. It's like anything else in Scripture or anything else that God has disclosed to us. For example, the Synoptic Gospels record the fact that Andrew is the brother of Peter in some accepted first century sense of the term brother. Well, you could say, okay, Scripture teaches that. Why is it important I believe it? Well, it's important you believe it because it's true and because Scripture has taught this. God has revealed this fact. And so, so you might look at it and say, well, in and of itself, it doesn't have a particular importance. It's not high up in what's called the hierarchy of truths. It's not like the Trinity or something. But nevertheless, God chose to put it in what he revealed to us in Scripture, and we need to accept it for that reason. There's also another reason that there's a special meaning to Mary's perpetual virginity, and it's this. And actually, there are more than one reason, but this is the reason I'll mention. The whole point of having Jesus be born of a virgin is to show that Jesus is the Son of God. Now, God is omnipotent. He could have chosen for his Son to become incarnate and have a human father, just like he chose him to become incarnate and have a human mother. So God could have had Jesus have two human parents in the biological sense, but he chose not to as a way of emphasizing, this is my son, there is no human father. Now, suppose then that the woman in question goes on to have normal sexual relations with her husband and has other kids. That kind of raises a little bit of doubt then, doesn't it, about was Jesus really the Son of God or was he just the son of Joseph? And as a way of protecting the truth that Jesus is the Son of God and has no human father, God chose a consecrated virgin so that she would never have sexual relations and no doubt would arise about, is Jesus really the Son of God from that perspective?
Ezra, I hope that was helpful. We will leave it there because we have to head towards a break. It is open forum today on Catholic Answers Live. Our number, 888-31-TRUTH. Any question that you might have on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church, Jimmy Akin, our senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, is here to answer them. 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with more of that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Tim Staples. Are you looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker to come and speak at your conference or parish event? We've got a whole host of Catholic Answer speakers just waiting to get on a plane and come see you. Go to CatholicAnswerspeakers.com to get all the information you need to make your event the talk of the town. That's CatholicAnswerspeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
Right now, Catholic Answers is conducting its summer campaign. We're going into the lean summer months, and we're forecasting a shortfall of $220,000 before our income picks up again later in the year. This is a crucial time because we need to offset that drop in donations. To make your donation and get your special thank you gifts, visit Catholic.com and click the Summer Campaign banner. Or call us toll-free at 888-291-8000. That's the Summer Campaign banner at Catholic.com, or call toll-free 888-291-8000.
Sharing the gospel with family and friends can be challenging. It's especially hard when they won't even hear you out because of all the mental roadblocks they've built up. This is Carlo Broussard, and in my new book, Prepare the Way, my aim is to help you tackle that essential first step to apologetics and evangelization, getting people to listen with an open mind. Even our best witness can bounce right off folks like these if we don't prepare the way first, breaking down barriers and leaving minds and souls free to encounter the truth. I'll give you evidence and arguments and step-by-step strategies based on asking the right questions to help them overcome their obstacles and make a straight path for the Lord. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Time to keep moving through the calls here in the fourth quarter of this hour. Next hour, Jim Blackburn, apologist Jim Blackburn, will be here to take your call. We'll continue with the open forum. So if we end this hour and we didn't get to you, just hang on. We'll get to you in the next hour. And if you haven't dialed yet, go ahead and start dialing, 888-31-TRUTH. We go now to Sean in Franklin, Massachusetts, listening on EWTN Radio. Sean, thanks so much for your call. Your question for Jimmy Akin.
Yes, thank you for taking my call, and God bless you and your vocation.
Thank you.
My question has to do with babies who die before they're baptized, and I've been taught that they go to limbo, and I'm wondering why the holy innocents are martyrs when they didn't really choose to die for Jesus, but like another baby who just dies goes to limbo and doesn't get to heaven. I'm wondering if it's possible through God's mercy that other babies get to go to heaven. So I don't know if you can explain that.
So did I hear you, as part of your question, ask about the holy innocents that were killed by Herod the Great and the idea that they did go to heaven as martyrs?
Correct.
Okay. So that's not a church teaching. That's a theological speculation. And people who have entertained that speculation would propose that because their deaths were linked concretely to the ministry of Christ, that connection between them and their deaths and the ministry of Christ, that provided a way for them to be saved and go to the full glory of heaven, even though that wouldn't, on this view, ordinarily be the case for other infants. It's because they were, in a sense, dying for Christ that there's an exception that is proposed for them by people who entertain this view. I would also note that the Church commemorates the Holy Innocents on its liturgical calendar. However, as far as I'm aware, they have never been formally canonized by a pope. They got on the liturgical calendar, in my understanding, from the pre-canonization process. So having said that, let's talk about the case of children dying without baptism in general. For a long time, it has been widely believed that if a person dies without some kind of faith in God, that without some kind of choice in favor of God, that one will not experience the full glory of heaven and the beatific vision. And since infants aren't capable of exercising faith according to any way we can observe, it was thought they therefore couldn't experience the beatific vision. So what would then happen to them? Well, a proposal for what would happen to them is because they also don't have personal sin, and so it wouldn't make any sense for God to punish them in hell either. And so the proposal was that maybe there's another destiny, let's call it limbo, and there they, on the one hand, wouldn't have the beatific vision of heaven, but they also wouldn't have the sufferings of hell. They might even have great natural happiness in limbo. They might be having a really rockin' time. They just don't have the full heavenly glory and the supernatural happiness of having the beatific vision. So this was a speculation that was proposed to account for this situation. However, subsequent doctrinal development has cast this issue in a new light, and over the course of time, it was realized that God can accept not just a conscious desire for salvation, but even an unconscious one, what's sometimes called an implicit faith. And this was discussed, for example, in 1949 in a letter sent by what's now the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Back then it was called the Holy Office. But there was a controversy about could non-Christians who didn't have a conscious intention of becoming Christian, could they be saved? And based on the teaching of prior popes, including Pius IX, and the current pope then, Pius XII, the Holy Office came back and said, well, as long as the person has fundamentally good will, where they would want to conform their lives to God's will, then if they're innocently ignorant of the fact that they need to become Christian, God will count their desire to do the right thing as a kind of implicit faith and an implicit desire to be Christian, and they'll be saved through that. Because what they fundamentally desire is the truth. They just don't know that Christianity is the truth, and so they implicitly desire Christianity. Now, at the Second Vatican Council, the question came up of, does God offer everybody the possibility of salvation? And the Second Vatican Council's conclusion was yes, God offers everybody the possibility of salvation, even if it's in a way we can't see or perceive. And subsequent to that, theologians began reflecting on the whole purgatory question, on the whole limbo question, and they said, you know, it looks like there's more room here for salvation than we initially thought. Maybe God would count, maybe some of these infants would have an implicit desire. Maybe their parents do. Maybe the church does. In fact, the church would explicitly want all of these children to be saved. And so in one way or another, it looks like there could be ways for God to allow these children into the full glory of heaven. And consequently, the Catechism of the Catholic Church simply says that we can entrust these children to the mercy of God. It doesn't mention limbo. It doesn't go into these other things. It just says we can entrust them to God's mercy. And in 2007 or 8, the International Theological Commission, which is an advisory group that works for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith in Rome, the International Theological Commission was commissioned to do a study of this question, and they did. And they concluded that there may indeed be other ways for these children to be saved. So you can still believe in limbo if that's the way you feel the evidence points, but it's not church teaching, and the current theological thinking in Rome is that there are other ways for these children to be saved. And if you want to look up that document, just Google International Theological Commission, infant baptism, and it will come right up.
Sean, thank you so much for that question. I hope that was helpful. We go now to Mike right here in San Diego. Mike, you are on with Jimmy Akin. Your question, Mike.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
Just fine. What's your question?
Great. Hey, I've heard, Jesus refers to himself quite often, I should say, as the Son of Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never understood what that meant or even why he does that. I was hoping you could help me out.
Yeah, there are three possible understandings of it, and they're not mutually exclusive. They could all be reasons why he does it. The first is to emphasize his humanity, that he's not just the Son of God, he's also a human being. And Son of Man is a recurring phrase in the Old Testament that's used to refer to human beings. And so this certainly seems to be a way of stressing his own humanity. Then there is the fact that some of the prophets, like Ezekiel, regularly are referred to as the Son of Man in their prophetic writings. So Ezekiel, for example, will be doing his thing, and one day he gets a revelation where he's addressed as Son of Man, I want you to go and do this or proclaim this. And so Jesus may thereby be associating himself with the prophets and indicating his own status as a prophet. Then there's a passage in Daniel where Daniel has a vision of the Messiah, and he sees one like a Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. And so Jesus is almost certainly thinking of that passage. In fact, he even alludes to Daniel's prophecies in his own prophetic discourse, the Olivet Discourse. So he seems to be associating himself with the Messiah in that passage. Now, some scholars have argued that this was a regular term for the Messiah that was commonly used, or even that it was a regular term that had become established in Jewish writings for a divine figure, and that Jesus might actually be emphasizing his divinity here. But those claims, especially the latter, are harder to substantiate from the evidence. So I just throw up a little bit of caution about that last proposal.
Okay, Mike?
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
God bless you guys.
You too.
Thank you very, very much. We go now to Jim in West Virginia, listening on AM 1450. Jim, your question for Jimmy. And we got to make it kind of quick, Jim, because we're coming up against the hour.
Okay, I don't know if this is a quick one. I have a question about monergism and whether or not the grace of God in our salvation is monergistic versus
synergistic,
a combination of our works and the propitiation of Christ working together for salvation. I understand with works without, or faith without works is dead.
Okay.
But
so let me take a stab at your question, because we only have a short time to address it. In fact, before I even do that, I'd like to recommend that you check out on Amazon.com a couple of things I wrote. One of them is a book called The Drama of Salvation. Another is an e-book called Justification by Faith and Works, ? Both of these, but especially the latter, are relevant to your question. Now, in terms of how we should understand and articulate this issue, from one perspective, all of salvation is to be attributed to God. We can't, of ourselves, independent of God, do anything. Jesus was the one who paid the price so that we could receive saving grace and our sins could be forgiven and we could go to heaven. We did not die on the cross, Jesus did. Having said that, God also gives us the grace to accept that message, and he gives us, as part of that grace, the ability to exercise our free will in a way that embraces his offer of salvation. And so from that perspective, we do indeed do something with respect to our salvation, but it's the very ability to exercise free will in that way is itself a gift of God. And so we can't say we have anything that didn't come from God that contributes to our salvation.
And Jim, thank you so much for being quick with that that somewhat difficult question.
Yeah.
Well, we did it. We got it in before the top of the hour.
did.
Thanks, Jimmy Akin.
Thank you, Cy Kellett.
It was-
See you again on Thursday.
Yes, and then again after that on Friday.
Ooh, for the game show.
Because you're going to do the game show with us.
Yeah.
You're the secret guest. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, I
You're
won't.
the surprise
I have
celebrity.
a suggestion for the title of the game show.
Oh, I wish. Okay, we've gone
but-
through about 500,000 now,
Yeah.
and we still
I'll
don't
tell
have
you
one.
off the air.
All right. Oh, this is. I'm looking forward to this. Next hour, Jim Blackburn will be here. We'll continue with our open forum. So if you're on the line, stay on the line. If you haven't dialed, 888-31-TRUTH is the number. Be right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
The essence of Christianity is this: we hold fast to what we were given by those who came before us. Throughout history, God's saving revelation has been proclaimed, preserved, and passed on, each generation staying true to the teaching it received. In his new book, Handed Down, The Catholic Faith of the Early Christians, author James L. Papandrea offers a fascinating window into the life of the early church, a time in which the church fathers took the gospel they received and developed the doctrines and practices that define the faith that we profess today. Handed Down is perfect for history-conscious Protestants looking for a friendly defense of Catholic belief, as well as for Catholics who want to deepen their connection with our forefathers in the faith. Order your copy of Handed Down today by calling 1-888-291-8000, going to Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Tim Staples' new book, Behold Your Mother, A Biblical and Historical Defense of the Marian Doctrines, is, to put it simply, a must-read. You won't find a more complete apologetic work defending the 6 most important Marian doctrines. And Tim Staples is the expert on this subject, so if there's one book, you need the book that he wrote. And there's truly something in this book for everyone. Whether you're a non-Catholic, a Catholic who's beginning to learn to defend their faith, or even a seasoned apologist like me, you're going to learn some things in this book you did not know before. And you're going to be challenged to spiritually grow in devotion to Our Lady, who, as Tim says, always leads us to our Lord. So pick up a copy of Behold Your Mother by Tim Staples today, available from Catholic Answers Press at shop.catholic.com. That's shop.catholic.com.
It's been called a crash course in salvation history, the perfect addition to CCD and RCIA reading lists. Catholic Answers' new graphic novel, The Big Picture, has set the Catholic book world on fire with its unique and innovative blend of apologetics and entertainment. With high-quality, full-color illustrations and a storyline that's easy to follow, The Big Picture reveals a story full of passion, suspense, adventure, and hope, engaging the reader immediately as our heroes come face-to-face with the drama and mystery of God's plan for the salvation of the world. It gets readers talking and thinking, captivating and entertaining them with eternal truths presented in a non-threatening way. Get your friends and family talking about things that matter. Order your copy of The Big Picture today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is a media ministry that serves Christ by explaining and defending the Catholic faith. We help Catholics grow in their faith, we bring former Catholics home, and we lead non-Catholics into the fullness of the truth. Our goal is to be the most trusted and accessible source for sharing, explaining, and defending the Catholic faith through as many media as possible, from personal contact to the most innovative means of mass communication. Have questions? We've got answers. Catholic Answers. Visit us today at Catholic.com or call us with your questions at 619-387-7200.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, open forum. If you have a question about the Catholic faith, if you have a question about what we Catholics believe, what we do, why we believe and do those things, this is your hour, 888-318-7884. If you're Catholic, you're welcome to call. If you're not Catholic, you're welcome to call. If you're not sure, you're welcome to call. 888-31-TRUTH is the number. Maybe you want to know about sacraments. Maybe you want to know about what we believe about the Bible, or about Jesus himself, or Mary, or anything, any question you've got, we're happy to take it. 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Catholic apologist, author, and speaker Jim Blackburn. Jim is one of the speakers you can book at our Catholic Answers Speakers Bureau. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. His books include 101 Quick Questions with Catholic Answers on Marriage, Divorce, and Annulment. He's written a bunch of the 20 Answers series books, 20 Answers Scripture and Tradition, 20 Answers the Papacy, 20 Answers Homosexuality, and 20 Answers Divorce and Marriage. He's probably working on one even as we speak right now. Hi, Jim Blackburn.
Hello, Cy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so happy to have you here. And I think we got all our technical issues straightened out from the last time where
I think so. I hope so.
we kept dropping you for some reason. It's not personal, Jim. I don't want you to think it's personal.
I have tunneled a line, a dedicated line from my home office to Catholic Answers, and that's what we're connected by today. So we should absolutely not have any connection issues.
That is a heck of a tunnel, Jim. I'm really impressed. If you could do that.
Well, Elon Musk helped me with the tunneling.
With his Boring Company?
Yes.
Which I think is a great name for a company, the Boring Company, because that's what they do, boring. I assume I think I might have asked you this last time, but for the summer, your speaking schedule is lighter than the rest of the year. Is that correct?
It typically is. So I do have a pretty open schedule right now. Just a couple of things, and they're private events that I can't invite others to. But it's really open. Please, I'm available all summer long.
So if I just wanted an apologist to come speak at my private event, I don't know, I'm having a backyard barbecue and I wanted an apologist, you could come and talk? You could come and give a talk on...
Absolutely. I've never actually spoken at a barbecue, but I've spoken at birthday parties. In fact, there was an elderly woman one time who... her kids asked her what she wants for her 80th birthday, and she said, I'd like to have an apologist come, have the whole family here, have an apologist come and tell all my kids and grandkids why everybody needs to be Catholic. And I went and I spent a couple hours with the family, and it was just an amazing time. So
that is such a blessing.
Any reason you can think of. Yeah.
That's a blessing for them, but what a blessing for you that you got to share the good news in that way with a family.
I enjoyed it immensely, and I always do any place I go and speak. So any reason, it can be small group, large group. Yep. I love it.
All right, so I'm going to throw an idea out at you that I think that you'll agree with this idea. I just want to see if you do. Jesus makes your life better.
Yes.
You're on board with that?
Yeah.
I thought so, Jim. I thought you
without hesitation.
Actually, there was a little hesitation, and I don't know what that was. That was a technical thing or what, but there was a moment where you're like, is there more to this? Maybe that's what you're waiting for more.
I do have a gardener named Jesus, and I was just for a brief second I thought you might be talking about him, but even if you were, he does a decent job, so he makes my life better too.
I'm happy to hear it, Jim.
Sure.
I don't know what to make of that. Okay, so I found out last time you were on here too that you are a twin, an identical twin.
Identical twin.
And this bothers me now, though. How do I know that I'm actually talking to Jim Blackburn?
Because my brother's name is Jeff.
Okay. I'm going to try to sneak in, hey, Jeff, on you later and see if you respond. That is coming up. But you won't be prepared. I'm going to do it all of a sudden. You will not be prepared.
Okay.
There's a guy named James in Las Cruces, New Mexico, listening on Guadalupe Radio who'd like to talk with you, Jim Blackburn. Are you ready to take a call?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, James in Las Cruces, you are on with Jim Blackburn. Your question, please.
Thank you so much, brothers. I appreciate your ministries very much.
Thank you.
My wife suffered a stroke a couple of years ago, and she's stable. She's very weak, but she's also has some mild dementia because of it, and suffers now she needs to go to dialysis. And it's our cross, and I accept it, and I continue to care for her. I've been married with her for 51 years. My question is, this past Sunday, as we received our Eucharist, they come to and give it to us. We sit in the back because she can't walk very well. And since I believe that it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord, after consuming it, I was sitting there meditating, and then I thought, well, Lord, we both have you physically. Why doesn't a physical healing occur? Because we've just consumed you, and you touched people, and they got healed. And it was just a crazy question in my mind. I said, I don't mean to insult you, Lord, but I'm just curious if we're consuming you, and you're physically in us, why doesn't healing occur?
Okay, James. First, let me extend my prayers for your wife, and I can tell you that you seem to have a great attitude about it. You're right. You see it as a cross, and a cross is something that Jesus said we all need to take up our crosses and follow Him. And I think if you're asking God to have your suffering and your wife's suffering combined with His suffering on the cross and the suffering of other saints, that good can come from it. The greatest good that ever came into the world came through suffering, the suffering of Christ on the cross. So it's great that you have that perspective on this. Now, why don't the sacraments, and say in particular, why does not the Eucharist heal us physically? And this is a question that I've been approached with from time to time, and I like to start by pointing out that that's not really what the sacraments are for. If we go back to the beginning of man and we see the fall, God tells Adam and Eve, that if they eat of the forbidden fruit, that they will die. And the serpent tells them, "Oh, you won't die." They eat of it, and from their perspective, they didn't die. They were still alive. But we know that, in fact, they did die. They died spiritual. They died a spiritual death. And that's the primary loss that we have because of original sin. We do not have supernatural life within us. They could not pass on supernatural life to their offspring. That's what the sacraments are for. Jesus came that we may have life and have it abundantly. We're told in John's Gospel. And that type of life that He came to bring us is that supernatural life, the spiritual life that was lost in the fall. We get that first through baptism. We receive it more abundantly through the other sacraments. In John chapter 6, Jesus tells His disciples that unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life within you. Now, these people were living, but they were spiritually dead, and they needed the Eucharist for the spiritual life. So rest assured, James, that if your wife is receiving the Eucharist in a worthy manner, she is receiving life abundantly, but it's supernatural life that she's receiving. And supernatural life is much, much more, infinitely more important than physical life here on earth. God allows suffering, and if we ask God to combine our own suffering for good, that good may come of it, that can happen. And but what we need to realize when we're receiving the sacraments is that we're receiving and building up supernatural life within us that will carry us on then for eternity. Okay, James, I hope that helps.
Very good. Yeah, well, you just added a block to my little foundation of faith. God did some repair work, and I really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
James, thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. And our prayers for your wife and for you as you struggle, as you said, with that cross that you carry. 888-318-7884 is the number. Mr. Blackburn, I think we need to take a break. Is that all right, Jeff? Oh, so close. I almost had you. All right, we'll take a break.
Nice try.
You almost went for it, though. We'll be right back. We'll be right back after this with more Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live with Jeff Blackburn.
Catholic Answers Live.
Summer is upon us, and though the temperatures are going up, the prices are coming down during Catholic Answers' first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, dozens of great books are available for $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. This is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for you, your friends, and your family. The spectacular online event offers savings of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Michuta, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now to shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions of our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription of the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or by logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription, and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. But better yet, become a 2-year subscriber, and we'll up the ante by dropping the price by $20. That's a savings of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now because this is our best offer of the year, and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
A lot of people think that street evangelization involves yelling out of a bullhorn telling people that they're going to hell. Not so with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Our methods are non-confrontational and effective. We simply offer information on the Catholic faith along with rosaries, miraculous medals, and prayer. Pope Francis wrote about how beautiful it is to see street preachers joyfully bringing Jesus to every corner of the earth. Street evangelization is fun and fruitful. Join us today at streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and it is open forum today. If you have a question about the Catholic faith, whether you are Catholic or not, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. Our guest, as far as I know, is Jim Blackburn, apologist extraordinaire, longtime apologist here at Catholic Answers. Now a Catholic Answers speaker and author of many, many fine books, and all around great but somewhat devious guy. So
no, Cy, it's you're just imagining that. It's my twin and I are identical twins, but it's been very rare in our history that we have, pulled a switch on somebody. In fact, it's happened more times unintentionally, where somebody will see Jeff and think he's me, or see me and think I'm Jeff. But we typically, we're not devious about it.
Did you ever owe somebody money though, and then they see you, they're like, hey, Jim Blackburn, get over here, and you're like, oh, that's my identical twin brother, Jeff.
I haven't had the occasion, but that's a good thought. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket.
And you're familiar with the whole film or TV genre of the evil twin, right? Is either of you the evil twin? I know who it is. I don't even answer that, Jim. I know who the evil one is.
Can we just take some calls now?
Yes, let's take some calls. Derek in Dallas, Texas, listening on 9:10 a.m. You're probably talking to Jim Blackburn. Your question, please. Derek? Hello?
Hello, this is in Baton Rouge.
Oh, I apologize. We must have had a little. Sometimes the phone lines get crossed when someone hangs up and another calls. Your first name, please?
Anonymous, please.
Anonymous, and you are actually on the air with Jim Blackburn. Do you have a question for him?
Yes, please. I have two questions in regards spiritual warfare and the ministry of exorcism in our church. I was wondering about how many dioceses in the United States have exorcists appointed by the bishop. And the other thing is, it seems that the identity of a lot of the identity, as far as I have been able to ascertain, is usually pretty private. In other words, it's hard to find an exorcist in the Catholic Church, and at least where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're looking in the right direction, though. An exorcist would be appointed by the bishop. To answer your question, how many dioceses in the United States have exorcists assigned to them, that I don't know. I know that one of the 20 Answers booklets that's out right now concerns exorcism, and the author of that booklet may take up some of those kinds of questions. I'd encourage you to read it if you're interested in exorcism anyway. In fact, I think I did a review on that when it was being written, and just thought it was excellent addition to the 20 Answers series. But exorcism is something that we don't want to take lightly. The church, before the church would ever enter into a situation where they believe that demons are involved in possession or something like that is taking place, and an exorcist is necessary, the church is going to investigate and rule out physical, psychological types of any type of natural possible explanation for what's occurring before it jumps to the conclusion that there's something preternatural, say demonic, going on. And so we shouldn't be quick ourselves to assume that that's the case when we see something happening. Mental health resources should be exhausted, medical, physical health resources should be exhausted before we jump to a conclusion that there's something demonic going on. Then, if we're concerned that may be the case, we should take it to the bishop, contact the bishop about it, have the bishop would likely assign someone to investigate it if he deems that it's necessary to do so before any sort of intervention by an exorcist would take place. But I encourage you, if this is a topic that you're interested in, pick up a copy of that 20 Answers booklet on Cy, you may know the full title to it, but I know it has something to do with exorcism.
I'm going to have to look it up because for some reason I'm drawing a blank in my little tiny brain right now. So Anonymous, thanks so much for the call, though. Appreciate it. I'm glad you got through by surprise there and had such a nice, clear question for us. We appreciate it. We go now to Cliff in Colorado, listening on 1060 AM. Cliff, your question for apparently Jim Blackburn.
Yeah, it's a coincidence because it's on the same topic as your previous caller.
Okay.
I actually have two questions, which is, are all demons fallen angels, or is there some other type of supernatural being that's in the mix? And similarly, are there things that people can do that make them more or less susceptible to possession, such as use by a Ouija board, for example?
Okay, yeah, great questions. As far as supernatural beings, or I should say spiritual beings, who have who can tempt us to sin or try to lead us into sin, those are what we would call demons, and those are fallen angels. They're created. We see in the Book of Revelation that there was a great war in heaven, and a third of the angels fell, and so we assume today that the demons come from that bunch that fell when the angels were created. But fallen angels or demons are not the only source of temptation and the only source of something that would call us into sin. We have our own fallen nature. I mentioned to an earlier caller that when Adam and Eve sinned, we lost supernatural life and the ability to pass that on, but we also gained what's called concupiscence. It means an attraction to sin, an inclination towards sin, and we all may be attracted to different sins, but we're all attracted to something that we shouldn't be attracted to, that's unhealthy for us and can be unholy for us. So our own fallen nature, our own sinful inclinations or inclinations towards sin are something that can lead us away from God as well. And then thirdly, we have demons, and we have ourselves. We also have other human beings who can lead us into temptation. Jesus said, woe to him who would lead the least of my children away from me. It would be better for him to have a millstone wrapped around his neck and be thrown into the depths of the ocean. So we can lead each other into sin. We can lead each other away from God, away from Christ. We don't want to do that, but we need to be aware that others can be a source of temptation for us as well. So when we consider those three sources, those are really the three main sources we need to consider. Ourselves, our own inclinations, others who might, whether intentionally or not, lead us astray, and then thirdly, and this would seem to be the least common of the three, would be the potential for demonic, not necessarily possession, but demonic temptation to somehow lead us away from Christ. So I hope that helps with the first part of your question. What was the second part? If I could ask you to maybe repeat the second part.
Sure. It is, are there things that people can do that make them more or less susceptible to possession in the traditional sense, such as use of a Ouija board?
And that's a good one to bring up. In fact, there have been warnings that have been issued by theologians and people in the church who have warned against doing anything like playing a game, such as a supposed game, that would open us up. Anytime we open our will to let a spiritual entity into our lives to influence us, even if what we might be doing when we're playing with a Ouija board is looking for past loved ones who have died to see if we can communicate with them. We know that's wrong, by the way. The Catechism says we're not supposed to do that. We see from Scripture that this is a dangerous thing. We're not to try to communicate with the dead. But when we open ourselves, when children in particular open themselves up to this, thinking that it's harmless, it can be very harmful because we don't know who might respond to that. Might God allow a deceased individual to communicate with us? It's a possibility. I mean, we see saintly apparitions. We see apparitions of Mary, but that's not something that we should be seeking out. If that's something God wants for us, God will help make that happen without our trying to make it happen ourselves. But if we are opening ourselves up to these kinds of things, we might not know who it is that's responding to us, and the demons could be very manipulative and devious, to borrow a word from Cy, to make us think that what's happening is all good and right, but they're going to lead us astray, and that would be their intention. So these kinds of things, anything that would open our will to demons, is a very dangerous thing, and we must stay away from that and teach our children to stay away from it. And a Ouija board is a good example of that, Cliff.
Okay, Cliff.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You were asking me when Anonymous was on the line about the 20 Answers book. It's just called Angels and Demons.
Angels and Demons, okay.
Yeah, I had completely forgot. It was one of the first 20 Answers booklets. Angels and Demons, if you'd like to get that, you just go to shop.catholic.com today. Oh, and I should, if you don't mind, Jim, I will remind people that there's the big June sale going on at shop.catholic.com right now. DVDs, books, all kinds of stuff, 50% off. There's a little banner at the bottom of the page when you go to shop.catholic.com, and it says, $10, $5, $1. There's all these items on sale. Stuff by Jimmy Akin, stuff by Tim Staples, stuff by Gary Michuta, Matt Fradd, a whole bunch of others. You just go to shop.catholic.com. You look for the $1, $5, $10 book and DVD sale banner. Click it, and you'll find all those deals. And also, everything ships, if you buy it there, at a flat rate of $5. No matter how much you buy, flat rate of $5 shipping on all of it throughout the month of June. There might even be some stuff by Jim Blackburn there available for you on sale. He is, if you don't know him, he is Jeff's brother. 888-318-7884 is our number. If you have a question for Jim Blackburn, go ahead and pick up the phone and call. I just want to let you know, Jim, on Facebook, while you were giving that answer on Ouija boards and all that, Marie on Facebook she said, how about mediums? And just a quick word on that, mediums?
Yes, a medium would be, I'm assuming she's talking about someone who would attempt to conjure and communicate with a deceased loved one,
yes,
and help us to do that, whether it be through a seance or through some sort of who knows what means. And this is something that is it's immoral. It's something the Catechism of the Catholic Church mentions that we are not to involve ourselves in this. And maybe after the break, I'll point out a couple of Catechism paragraphs that will be helpful to Maria.
Yeah, it would be really helpful too, because there's TV shows now with these mediums on there, and they're very. We'll talk about it when we come back. Jim Blackburn is, in fact, our guest. He's not devious, and any question you got for him on the Catholic faith is welcome.
Your number one source for Catholic apologetics and evangelization. Catholic Answers Live.
God helps those who help themselves. Preach the gospel always. When necessary, use words. We all hear sayings like these, and we assume they come from the Bible, the saints, or famous Christian writers. Nobody can seem to place their origin, but by sheer repetition, they've acquired a halo of truth. In my new book, What the Saints Never Said, I look at over 40 of these well-known sayings and track them back to their original sources. You'll be surprised at what I found. Some are close to what was really said. Many were misattributed or twisted beyond their original meaning, and more than a few of these sayings were simply made up. I hope by setting the record straight, I can make you aware of the theological errors that can lead us away from the faith and offer you authentic quotes from Scripture, saints, and scholars that will draw you closer to our faith. Get your copy of What the Saints Never Said by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Have you heard who's reading the Register? Why, it's Tim Staples.
The National Catholic Register gives you the world's news like no other. Only NCR has a stable of writers steeped in good Catholic theology and philosophy to give you the news with proper perspective.
For a 3-month free subscription to the National Catholic Register, go to ncregister.com and click on the 3 months free banner, or call 1-800-421-3230.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Jim Blackburn, our guest this hour. Your calls on anything having to do with the Catholic faith are welcome, because it's open forum. If you're not Catholic and you've always wondered something about Catholics, or you'd like an explanation or even a justification of something we believe as Catholics, you're welcome as well. We're happy to have a conversation with you. 888-318-7884. When we went to the break, I was asking you, because Marie had asked online, what about mediums? And I convey that question in part because I have to say, I am not delighted by the TV networks putting on these mediums who they practice a form of a con that's been practiced for centuries. It's a con game. They're con artists, and they're on TV presenting themselves as people who speak to the dead. But I just wanted to get your take on what the church says about it.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, Cy, that I think more often than not, someone who purports to be a medium it's a scam job. They're simply trying to pull wool over someone's eyes and get money for doing something that is, and they've learned how to do this. They've learned how to guess what these different things might be going on in your life to try to convince you that they're real, they're authentic, the real thing. But even if we were to find the real thing, believe that this is somebody who really believes in what he's doing, and he's had a history of this, we want to stay away from it. And I'd refer anyone who's interested in this to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and in particular on the commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me." This falls under this. So, our God is the one true God, and we need to trust in him and follow his teachings through Christ and the church. And one of the things that we're not to do is to try to intervene into the supernatural life, in the sense of trying to contact the dead and these kinds of things. But the Catechism of the Catholic Church, beginning in paragraph 2110, and going forward, is what I would recommend that someone read, and in particular, paragraphs 2116 and 2117. Those deal with divination, conjuring of demons, practices that supposedly unveil the future, astrology, and then magic and sorcery and all these kinds of things. So in particular, paragraphs 2116 and 2117, but also the surrounding paragraphs, I think all put it all into context to help someone understand why it is the church is teaching this.
Thank you, Marie, on Facebook for that question. We go now to Mark in Edmonton, Canada. Mark, you are on. Thanks for calling from Canada, by the way. You are on with Jim Blackburn. Your question.
Good afternoon, or evening, I guess, where you are.
No, it's still afternoon here. We're in California.
Oh, I thought you were in Houston. My mistake.
No, we get a lot of calls from Texas, though. We love that. We'd like more from Edmonton, though. So if you could encourage people in the area to start listening more, Mark, we'd appreciate it. But go ahead.
I am, believe me.
Thank you.
But it's dicey. But anyway, let's go to the epistles where Paul talked about. Now, I'm going to just give you a heads up. I'm going to paraphrase here. Okay, so I've read this in different versions of the New Testament, many different versions. So Paul goes up to, I believe it's either the seventh heaven or the third heaven, more or less, and he wasn't sure if it was in spirit or not. And one of the things, I'm really stretching it here, he said that he couldn't believe the language they were speaking, which I'll just add, I believe certainly one of the persons up there was the Father, our Father in heaven. So anyway, what do you think might be that language?
Oh, so you're okay. Go ahead, Jim. Yeah. But I said he's talking about 2 Corinthians, I assume, right?
Yeah. And ignore that beep beep. That's my service provider. I've been declining the call 4 times before you went to my call, so I know it's annoying for everybody listening.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to decline it, and I declined it 4 times, and they just won't stop calling. It took me 45 minutes or an hour to get through.
All right. Well, let's get you an answer. That's okay. The beep is not distracting at all. So, Jim?
Yeah, I think the chapter and verses here that Mark is talking about is in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, the first several passages of that. And I'm not certain what in particular what translation might be being read, but I'm not sure I would understand it the same way. Could we look at this passage here for a second, Cy, and see if figure out what exactly he's talking about? When he says that he knows a man in Christ 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows, and I know that this man was caught up into paradise, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. And he heard things that cannot be told, which man may not utter. I'm wondering if that's what might be he might be referring to. Is that the verse? Do you think, Mark? That
you nailed it.
That's it. Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, and that is it. There's many different ways this can be understood, but one of the ways is the idea, and by the way, when Paul is talking about the third heaven, we see heaven, the heavens above us, we could categorize as the three different types, and that would be the sky around us where the birds fly. That would be the first heaven. The second heaven would be where we see the sun and the moon and the stars, would be the second heaven. Then the third heaven would be the dwelling of God, the in a real sense, say the beatific vision. And it could be what Paul is talking about here is that this person experienced an experience with God. It cannot be put into words, cannot be there's no way that we in human language or in our human expression can possibly explain this. And it's the beatific vision, of course, would be like that. Philosophers often mention that we only do a disservice to God by trying to describe him. We can, in every way that we try to understand God and explain God, we're doing a disservice to him because we just cannot ever accomplish an expression of his infinite goodness and power and being. It's just something that we can't do. So what I'd recommend that you do, Mark, is maybe consult a good Catholic commentary on this and read this passage maybe in different translations. Bible Gateway online is multiple translations. You could pull this verse up and look at it in multiple different translations, and it might make more sense to you there in that way. But that's my understanding of. You're not talking about a particular language as though there's a language out there that we don't know about or that we're being told about here, so much more as it's something that's just unable to be expressed in language, something that is incomprehensible to a human mind, to our finite human minds as we exist right now. So I hope that helps some, but I'd encourage you to take a look at that with a Bible commentary to get some more insight on what different meanings Paul might be trying to express here.
Okay, Mark?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, now you can answer the phone. Thank you for the call. And that person that Paul is talking about there is himself. He's using clever language because he doesn't want to show off, right? He even says that,
yes,
this happened to a guy. I don't want to brag, but
yes,
and he doesn't want to brag in himself, but it's just clever language that he's using there. Betty in Louisville, Kentucky, listening on EWTN radio. You are on with Jim Blackburn. Your question.
I don't know exactly how to ask this, so I'll get confused. When a baby's born, before he's born, is his soul intact, or is it after he's born?
Okay, well, the church teaches that at the time a human being is created, that God creates the soul at that moment. So as we would understand it, as soon as we could figure out that there is a human being there, say at conception even, we would have at conception the egg and the sperm coming together and becoming, physically having a DNA that's not the DNA of the mother, not the DNA of the father, but its own unique DNA, and it's alive and it's human, and so this is a new human being. So from most Catholics' perspective, we would say that that God creates that soul at the moment of conception, and that's why we as Catholics and the Catholic Church teaches that that human life must be protected from conception to natural death. So the human soul is created, I would say, Betty, at conception, and then so that baby is going to have a human soul for every moment of its existence from there on, from conception onward.
Okay, Betty?
Was the child martyred when you considered the child being martyred? It was murdered, but I mean,
you mean
in my opinion, I think God would be merciful and the child be in heaven. But I was just asking because I was sitting here wondering.
Okay, so then a child aborted then is what Betty's asking about.
In the case of an aborted child.
Yeah.
First, Betty, the church, God has not revealed to the church what happens to the souls of children or infants, even in the womb, who die without baptism. Because we know ordinarily the sacrament of baptism is necessary to give us that supernatural life that was lost in the fall, so that we can go on then and live supernaturally in heaven for eternity. So we know baptism is fundamentally necessary for that, at least ordinarily. But the church also recognizes there are other ways. While we are bound to baptize our children for their sake of their eternal lives, God is not bound by the sacraments. God can save anyone he chooses to save in whatever manner he chooses to save a person. And the church, in thinking about this and studying this and teaching about this, has come to recognize that God does provide other ways. When a person who's not baptized is martyred, for example, dies for the sake of his faith, then that person would receive what the church would call baptism of blood, and that's it would give that person the benefits, the fruits of baptism, or at least the sanctifying grace that would come ordinarily first through baptism. That person would receive that because God's providing it to him. There's a third type of baptism called baptism of desire, where as a person, and just one place the church uses this today is in the teaching of catechumens. When you've got someone who's not baptized but wants to become Catholic, the church doesn't immediately baptize that person. The person would go generally through an RCIA program, which could take a year to 2 years, and at the end of that would be baptized. But the church assures those people, the catechumens, that if they were to die prior to their baptism, that their desire for baptism would be sufficient for the grace of baptism for them. So there is not that rush to baptism in the case of an adult who has that desire. Now, infants and children are not capable of desire before a certain age, and therefore some theologians have speculated that the desire of the parents, the desire of the church for their salvation, because through no fault of their own they did not receive baptism, that it could be that desire would suffice for an infant, say, who is aborted in the womb. This is something the church has actually written on fairly recently. I think it was in 2007. The Vatican, I don't know if it was Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, but a document, and I'd have to look up the document, but it deals.
Jim, we got to take a break, so we can look the document up, and we'll tell her when we get back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
This is Dale Ahlquist of the American Chesterton Society, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Whenever morality comes up in discussions, some atheists argue the behavior patterns we call morality are merely the product of evolution, naturally selected for the survival of our species. But is this true? The answer is no, and here are some reasons why. First, if it were true God didn't exist and our moral behaviors were merely the product of evolution, well then the dictates of our evolved nature wouldn't express the will of a being beyond man. As such, there would be nothing to morally bind man's will and thus no moral obligation. Second, what if the behaviors we judge now as wrong, such as rape and murder, become beneficial for our species in the future? According to the atheistic evolutionary account, they would have to be morally acceptable. But these conclusions are absurd. Moral obligation does exist, and rape and murder will always be wrong. Therefore, evolution is not sufficient to explain morality. I'm Carlo Broussard with a ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Homeschool Connections has recently formed a partnership featuring a dual enrollment program with Franciscan University of Steubenville. Our website is homeschoolconnections.com. We are a proud sponsor of Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, my friends. Summer is here. That means summer reading. I have great news. Catholic Answers is having its first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, you can get dozens of great books offered at $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. Now is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for yourself, your friends, and your family. Save 50% or more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Machuda, and a whole host of great authors. And my personal favorite, all the books in our Catholic Answers Classic series are marked down as well. Log on now and all this month to the store at shop.catholic.com and take advantage of our first ever summer sale. Log on today at shop.catholic.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, open forum. We're in the home stretch now, so I'm going to get through questions as quickly as I can. Jim Blackburn, apologist, speaker, and writer, is our guest. 888-318-7884 is our number. And Jim, you wanted to give some... Betty had asked about the possibility of salvation for a child who was aborted in the womb. She said she believes that God would save that child, which I believe you have said nothing to say she can't have that belief. That's... You're welcome to have that belief, but what does you wanted to give her some documents about what the church believes?
Sure, and I did mention that God has not revealed to us what happens, and so there's been theological speculation. Much earlier in the church, the theological speculation was the limbo of infants, which limbo is a word meaning fringe. It's means that the idea. The speculation was that these children never sinned themselves, but because of the stain of original sin, they don't have supernatural life. So they would live eternally in a state of natural happiness. And this natural happiness is what would be considered limbo of the infants. Excuse me. The church is theologians have moved largely away from that and recognize that through God's mercy, Jesus said, "Let the children come to me," and God's mercy, God can provide a way of salvation for these children that would include the beatific vision, would include supernatural life. And two resources that I'd recommend for Betty, I believe it was, is the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph in particular 1261. 1261 says that as regards children who have died without baptism, the church can only entrust them to the mercy of God and goes on from there. So I'd recommend reading that. Secondly, in 2007, the church did the International Theological Commission is who issued this document, not the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, but the International Theological Commission issued a document titled "The Hope of Salvation for Infants Who Die Without Being Baptized." So you can pull that up online, and it's available on the Vatican website and other sites. And I'd recommend, if you want to do some more reading and understanding of the history of this, take a look at that, study this document. I think it would be very helpful to you, Betty.
Thanks, Betty. We go now to Michael in Sacramento, capital of our great state of California. Your question, Michael, for Jim Blackburn.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good
I
afternoon.
was married in the early 80s and divorced. It was a non-Christian marriage. I had no clue about Christ at that time, and my divorce was absent any understanding of the Christian faith. After that, I became an evangelical, and since then have married as an evangelical, or I should say remarried. And in the 22 years of this marriage, I have earnestly desired to become Catholic. And
Wonderful.
so I have not yet completed annulment. I have chosen for the last 3+ years to live a Josephite marriage on account of my convictions. The question is, may I receive the Eucharist not having completed an annulment and still living in a Josephite remarriage?
Okay. Great question, Michael. And but for anyone who doesn't know, and to clarify for myself as well, by Josephite marriage, you mean that you and your current wife are not engaging in conjugal relations. You're living, as the euphemism goes, as brother and sister. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For 3 years.
Okay. Very good. To be barred from receiving the sacrament of the Eucharist, what would bar you from that is to be living in a state of perpetual ongoing sin, even just objective sin. So this is actually something, Michael, that the Church mentions in paragraph 1650 in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that for people who are in what would be presumably an invalid marriage, if they're willing to commit to marital continence or Josephite marriage until the situation is resolved, then they can go on to receive the sacrament of confession, receive absolution through the sacrament of penance, and then go on to receive the Eucharist. In fact, in my mind, that's the only moral choice for a person in that situation to do. Until the situation is resolved, then don't live as though it's been resolved. Don't live as though you are in a marriage when it's presumable at this point that you might not be. So it sounds like you're doing the right things, Michael. And if you were to go further and enter the Church, even while an annulment was ongoing, you could, according to paragraph 1650 of the Catechism, you would be able to receive the sacraments and be fully living the sacramental life in the Catholic Church, as long as you're committed to not living in that state of perpetual, ongoing, even objective sin. So I hope that helps, Michael. I'd refer you to paragraph 1650 in the Catechism. I would also I elaborate on that in my booklet on divorce and remarriage. It's one of the 20 answers booklets, 20 answers to divorce and remarriage. I talk about this, and in fact, I would like to see paragraph 1650 kind of flip-flopped. It starts out by mentioning that, if you're in an invalid marriage, you shouldn't be receiving the Eucharist, and you can't even be absolved of your sins in confession. And then it goes on kind of almost as an afterthought to mention, unless you do this. Well, I think, no, that should be the first part. If you're in a marriage that is presumptively invalid, the first thing you need to do is rectify that situation as best you can. And by doing what you're doing, living as brother and sister until the situation can be resolved, you then free yourself to go on and receive the sacraments and fully live the sacramental life in the Church.
All right. We'll leave it there because I want to get to one more question if we can before we go to the hour. Michael, if you're still on the line and you give your address to our call screener, we'll send you that 20 Answers book for free. Margie in Virginia, listening on the Catholic Answers app. I know you've been waiting a long time. Margie, your question real quick for Jim Blackburn.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I have a Catholic friend, and she was talking that she had done some regression work, and that she went as back far as that she was seeing herself as a man, a monk, and I had never heard of that. And she says she also talked about white magic, and that didn't sit right with me.
Jim,
and
real quick.
Yes. What I would refer her to is the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verse 27. It's appointed for men to die once, and after that, the judgment. We do not live multiple lives. Reincarnation is not real. It's just a philosophical thought some men have come up with. But the author of the letter to the Hebrews tells us we die once, and then we're judged.
Thanks, Margie. Thanks very much for making that question so quick. Jim Blackburn, thank you so much. I had a great hour with you.
Thanks so much, Cy. Great to be here.
Always appreciate it. And where people can get in touch with you, where can they go?
jimblackburn.org, or look me up on Facebook, Blackburn Jim.
And tomorrow, 2 great hours of live Catholic Answers coming up on Catholic Answers Live. I say that because it just left my little brain again. See you tomorrow, God willing. Catholic Answers Live.